Lizzie, it's good to see you. We've been communicating over a very long time now. I think you've even changed the name of the school in the time since the application first came in, which is an unusual one, but there we are. Once upon a time, of course, pre-COVID, you'd find usually me arriving on your doorstep, going to an assembly, presenting one of those very old-fashioned things, a cheque, which I hasten to add we don't do. I think you've supplied me with your banking information, haven't you? So that's good, because we've gone into high technology world for a 17th century organisation now, and we do bank transfers, which makes life so much easier. But rather less fun, I guess, because it was always great from my point of view, or perhaps the master might come along and engage with the children and really get into understanding about the school. So I suppose in many ways, COVID has actually, well, it has forced a huge change. And of course, now we have these kinds of engagements. Hopefully it would be lovely to come to school at some point, but we know not when. But that's not in any of our hands, but it would be lovely to do that. Glaston Society has reached out very strongly across the West Midlands over, gosh, I suppose I've been doing it personally for about 15 years now. And we've supported many, many schools right the way across the area. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about the school, hearing about your plans and what you're going to do with the kit. And then after that, when you've got it all, we'd like you to come back and do another event like this, hopefully with the children, and we can understand what you've been doing and what difference it's made to you. But it's a delight to be here and delight to see you today. So over to you. Tell us about your school, please.
Okay, thank you. We're just going to try and share our screen.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking, can we share something as well? Yeah, this one. Are you able to see this?
Yes. Okay. I thought the best way to kind of start us off was just share our school's mission, our mission statement, and then just talk about some of the things that we try and instill within the children, or try and hope that actually we come across as instilling it, because obviously that's the key. So the mission is to promote a culture of educational excellence from within a caring and secure environment, enriched with the values of discipline, mutual care and respect, which extends beyond the school into the wider community. So as part of that, we have the three key elements, which is educational excellence, character development, and service to communities. Now, many schools will probably go through the educational excellence, because obviously we're a place of, that kind of goes through academic kind of views and understanding of what happens within education and how we go about teaching it. But I think the key thing for our school, and I think the MAT, which is the Multi-Academy Trust, the two things that have kind of come in are character development, which we as a school had a focus on before, but I think there is probably a bigger emphasis on it. So with that, it's about developing our children in becoming better communicators and better citizens within not just the school, but the local community, the big wide world even. So that's kind of growing the children with their, as I said, confidence, their communication, their just general development, I guess, as human beings. And as part of that links to the service to communities as well. So teaching children about the values of charities and not just in terms of the monetary part of it, but also time and giving back as a way of just being part of the community. So I think those three things are what kind of will define us as a school and as a trust. So I'm going to quickly move on unless there's any questions. Yes, no? Okay. So moving on to the next bit. So just a general kind of breakdown of what our school looks like. So in terms of our makeup, we've got a total number of children which is in excess of 1,000, so 1,269. Since the last kind of numbers that we had. Pupils eligible for pupil premium, that's 494. So pupil premium children, I'm not sure if you're aware, are those children who receive additional support in terms of monetary support. So it's generally the children who are free school meals. So they come from quite a financially hardship kind of background, and it's for those children who tend to have the pupil premium put on them. Total percentage of disadvantaged pupils are 39%. So that's quite a high number of children who kind of come to our school who are on some sort of benefit and are needing that additional support. So we come from an area where the school is based in an area where there's a high level of deprivation. So as a school, we serve the community with, as I said, high levels of deprivation, and they're in an indicator quintile 5, which if you look that up, it's quite a high level of deprivation. So it's schools with high levels of deprivation fall in that quintile, and we are one of those schools. But obviously, families face different types of hardships, social, economic, and we as a school have to try and bear that in mind. So as well as the academic part, we also try and think of how else we can support the local community and the children as well as their families. So our starting points tend to be quite low for the children that come in as a result, because of everything that I've discussed in the first 2 points. So because of that, we as a school have to try additionally hard to try and get them back to a point where they're on level grounds with, say, children from different areas. So as a school, we do work very, very hard to try and focus on children and understand and have a good understanding, should I say, of where they come from and where they need to be. So even though we may not have the same results as some of the schools from the leafier parts of the city, what we know as a school is actually the starting points of our children and where they end up. They make massive progress. So as a school, we do work very, very hard to ensure that happens. In terms of diversity, it's 97.5% of our pupils come from ethnic minority families, and of that, 80% speak English as an additional language. Now, what we do find is, although that is a fact, a lot of our children do speak English and actually speak very good English, but they do have an additional home language which they do tap into. So that does mean that there are certain barriers that we need to try and break down in terms of children understanding certain language, and we as a school have kind of made a point of ensuring that language is a massive thing that we kind of introduce to children and ensure that they are kind of acting on speaking and listening, if that makes sense. I'm not sure, everyone else is very, very quiet. Okay. Is that okay, Paul?
Yes,
thank you.
Fine. We're just.
I know I'm saying quite a bit here, but I think it's important that we kind of understand the background before we kind of move on to talking about the bigger things. So special educational needs, we've got 18% of our pupils who are on the special educational needs register, which they don't all have the same range of needs, but most of them have got moderate learning needs. So that can range from speech and language and communication needs. But we do have some children which we're finding who are now entering the schooling system who have got more challenging needs. And I think that's where we as a school are trying to find new ways of kind of moving forward and also supporting not just the children, but also the teachers in terms of how they can provide that access. And I think if we move on to the next bit, Next slide, here we go. So this is kind of more recent, and I think we kind of touched on this in terms of the school becoming an academy. So as of October 2020, Starbank School has become part of the Star Academies. Now, Star Academies, I think on the last count, I think they had about 36 schools under their umbrella. We, I think, were part of that 36, so we took up the last 3 places. But they're a growing MAT, a multi-academy trust, and they will probably continue to grow and increase in size. I'm not sure if you know anything about the Star Trust, but Jack Straw is one of the kind of members of the MAT. So he has quite a bit of influence in terms of, you know, what is done and what isn't done. So if you look up, you know, the actual members of the academy, he is part of the board as well. Star Academies is one of the country's leading education providers, and our schools promote excellence in everything that they do. So we have a high drive in terms of ensuring that, you know, each of our schools has this drive and excellence which comes from the forefront. But as I said in my earlier kind of slide, it's not just to do with the academic, it is also to do with the charity work and the giving back to the community and ensuring that, you know, we grow not just as a school but as a community, and instilling that within the children so that they understand that actually giving back is an important part of being a part of the school but also part of the community. And our schools work together as star partnerships in 5 cluster groups, so Lancashire, Greater Manchester, West Yorkshire, and more recently the Midlands and London. Schools within the partnership collaborate to share expertise and maximise opportunities and experiences for our schools. So, you know, what we, I think, are gaining as a multi-academy trust is that we've got that expertise to dip into and to get different schools to kind of share their kind of practices with us. So we're quite a big pool in terms of knowledge, but also experience as well, I guess. So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, background. Now, as a school, Starbank, we started off, I think, quite humble beginnings where we were a 3 form entry school. We currently sit as a 6 form entry across 3 sites. So we started off as 1 site, and then we, as the I guess the population within the local area increased, the local council decided to give us or entrust us with another site, which was across the road, which was the Hobmore Road site. So we grew into, I think it was a 4 form entry at that point, and then I think going back 5 or maybe 6 years ago, we acquired Biedman Road, well, it says 2013, which was originally a school before. It became, I think, a local council house of some sort, and then it reverted back into a school, which was then taken over by ourselves, which is Biedman Road, and it's a lovely building. It's got lots of history attached to it as well. And then the most recent acquisition has been the Hobmore Road actual building, which originally existed as a smaller kind of school with lots of, I think, temporary buildings on the outside, because the council recognised actually this school couldn't stay as a temporary kind of shell. So what they did was they gave us this brand new purpose-built building which houses a primary school as well as a secondary school. So Starbank School now consists of 3 primary schools and a secondary school. So we're known as an all-through school, which means that our children can start from the age of, I think, 3 and go on all the way up until the age of 16, and only staying in 1 school if they choose to. So it's a great opportunity for us to, as teachers, to kind of have, I guess, dialogue and understanding of, you know, a child's early age all the way up until post 16 or 16 plus. So, you know, there's not many schools out there that can do that, but we are in a fortunate position to have both a primary and a secondary. Okay, right, just a little bit about our curriculum, which will then hopefully lead into going on to talking about why, you know, science is one of our key focuses. So Starbank's curriculum is broad and balanced with an emphasis on academic success. Our school prioritises learning in literacy, numeracy, languages, humanities and science. Our curriculum is both coherent and cumulative, with an emphasis on the critical importance of knowledge acquisition. Our pupils are required to read extensively from a broad range of high quality and increasingly challenging literature, or literally, is it literary? Okay. And technical material across all disciplines. Now, just going on and kind of talking a little bit more about that. I think more recently, I think with the government and Ofsted and how what they've kind of decided to do with the curriculum, with the 3 I's, implement, intent, and is it impact? And impact. They want the curriculum to be very, very broad in terms of the knowledge and the skills that we as schools teach. And as at Starbank, we kind of believe in that. But what we try and do is, as well as the whole curriculum element of it, we do try and encourage our children to read a wealth of books, so we can increase their language and broaden their horizons. But as teachers, we do struggle sometimes to get children to engage with things that they don't have an understanding of. So as teachers, what we try and do is try and make as many links as we can with the maths and the English and science, and try and make the links so that they are relevant to the children. So things that are modern, as well as things that are from the past when it comes to history, so just to make those links so they have a better understanding. When it comes to science, I think our children are so inquisitive. They are so kind of intrigued by how the world is made up. And I think during our science lessons in particular, you can hear a pin drop when certain teachers are teaching, because they're so excited by learning about new things, you know, space and animals and you know, plants and the biology of different things, for example. So the intrigue is there, and I think what we as a school know and want is to harness that intrigue and kind of really kind of tap into that kind of the hunger that they have and the thirst that they have for learning. And I think science is such an important thing, which I know Lizzie is very passionate about, and she will kind of talk to you a little bit more in terms of what she has got planned with all the lovely things that, you know, you've helped to contribute towards. So I'm going to move on to that part now for you, which is linking it to the science mission statement. I think Lizzie will come in and kind of do that for you.
So I'm doing the science part really, and I got in contact with you because I'm the science lead for the past, I guess, 5 years, and the whole aim, when I got here, I very naively thought that everyone loved science as much as me, and then I soon realised that hardly any children love science like I do, but I knew I could fix that for a lot of them. So we came up with this kind of mission statement for what we envisage science should be compared to what it was. So I thought that it should definitely prepare them for modern life. There are so many aspects that apply to not science careers, other careers that have links. And part of that is fostering a child's natural curiosity. So lots of scientists are described as being childlike because they've kept that curiosity from when they were children, and they haven't kind of let society dampen them or, you know, make them into a rigid, straight thinking person. So the innovators are often the best scientists. So we want to facilitate in all our science lessons, in all the culture of science in our school, we want to make them a mindset of awe and wonder, is what we say. So we want them to always ask questions. We want them to go off on tangents. So when I've been in other schools, and maybe when I started, I was kind of very rigidly sticking to the curriculum. And I think it soon became apparent that the best lessons are where you let the children guide the learning. And that's where innovation really happens. And that's where you create like scientists of the future, the children that really want to go on and learn more. So we want to create a culture that science lessons are the kind of baseline, where they can go on and go to higher education or into scientific jobs and understand how much of a responsibility we have to the wider environment and our community, and how science plays a massive part in all of that. So some things that I've tried to help over the last few years for science. So we've tried to make sure that lessons we do in class are well planned, they're progressive, that they're innovative and engaging, because I'm sure we can all remember a science lesson that with a dusty old teacher doing an experiment at the front and we just had to copy from the board. That's exactly what science should be, I'd say. It's got to be hands-on, practical learning. You've got to like ignite a spark in people to realise that there are a million things that can be classed as science, and probably children only realise a few of them are science from their lessons. So over the last few years, I've collaborated with a consortium of schools and their science leads, and we share ideas and try to make sure that science in our school offers the best opportunities we can, especially in schools like ours in areas of high deprivation. That's exactly the kind of thing that maybe seems like a closed door to them. So we have to give them the opportunities to see that they do have a place in the science world. So this involves lots of trips to places like wildlife centres. We've got the NEC Arena quite close to us, so they have science shows that we can take children to. I've tried to get in contact with lots of universities that will come in and have expert speakers so that children can see this is what you could be. I've tried really hard over the last couple of years to make links with science outside of the classroom, because I think it shouldn't be confined to the walls of your classroom. You've got to see science as everywhere, all the time in the wider world. So to do that, we're trying to get science areas in the playground. We're trying to make science libraries so that children can make links with literacy, and just get them really excited about it and buzzing, so that when they go on to secondary school, they do choose the science path.
Brilliant.
Wonderful. And I'm going to start off with one question. I find it quite fascinating how one of the young ladies was very interested in investigating crime.
Oh my gosh, my class are obsessed with true crime. We have, at the end of the day, we have a little chat about the news and what's going on. And so often they're on top of every criminal case, what's going on in the courts. If you want to know anything about the murders of the UK, my class are the experts, I have to say. They could do a whole documentary.
You know what the driving force with that is? Or is it...
I hope it's not me. I don't think I encourage it. But I'm glad in a way. I'm glad they've got an interest outside of school, even if it is a gory one.
And I think it comes back to, I think what we were speaking about earlier is about the exposure to different things around the world for our children. So
crime documentaries.
Yeah, crime but I think when it comes to science, I think the children can learn a lot from what science brings to the table. And the whole point that I think Lizzie's trying to make is that, as well as being underprivileged, I think we have a duty for, the females of the school, and particularly in the area where they get opportunities as well as the boys to be exposed to, different lines of work which they may not necessarily think are appropriate for them. So being a scientist has generally been seen as something that is mainly predominantly a male-run industry, but we want to kind of change that. We want to bring to the table that actually females are just as competent in becoming scientists, and where we can showcase scientists who are ladies or females, and bring them to the forefront, and show the children that actually, look, we've got Amelia Earhart, who was was it meteorologist? Was she a pilot? Trying to figure out which one it was. engineer, yes. I think she was a pilot as well. I can't remember. Yeah, so you know, people of significance from the history.
It's very interesting. I think it's a very good emphasis to put there, because I mean, I historically was involved with a organisation that we supplied funding to young girls who were not given the opportunity of secondary education in the environments in which they lived. And we provided them with finance so that these girls were able to go to school and complete secondary education and then possibly go on to university. And they did that in their own country. And having done that, the success stories that we actually achieved, we had many that went on to be nurses or on to become doctors, who they never would have been able to do that had we not funded them, because the priority was always given to the boys to go through to secondary education. And it brings me round to the fact that I noticed that you have a very big ethnic community around you and in the school. And I'm wondering, just at this current time, what the impact of something like Ramadan has on you.
So in year 5, a lot of where I am right now, a lot of the pupils are fasting, which shows great kind of moral integrity and a strong will to do that. So they're allowed to fast with their parents' permission in year 5 and 6. And I don't know how they do it. Super respect to them. They still come to school, of course. They still take part in everything. They still have to do PE. We talk about their celebrations that they have at home, and we definitely make it part of our classroom culture to talk about. But equally, we have a number of children that aren't Muslim here, not huge, but quite a small proportion. But I think it's lovely. I'm obviously not Muslim myself, and I'm not religious at all, but I love the kind of the mix of people we have at this school. That's the one thing that made me want to be here. I love how everyone shares in the excitement. The children that are non-religious still get excited when it's Eid, when the rest of the class are celebrating. When it's Christmas, the Muslim children get excited and we share stories. It's definitely like a shared culture, I guess. It's a mixing pot of a million different countries. We have, I think, over 20 spoken languages in our school. I think it's I wouldn't be anywhere else, to be honest. And I think I gain a lot from being here. So yeah, Ramadan's an exciting time. It's Eid in a couple of weeks. So it's a good time to be here.
Yeah, it's I can understand having Ramadan in a country where it's 12 hours light and 12 hours dark. When we're on 16 hours, I find it 16 and 18 hours light. I find it a bit of a question mark in my own way. But I think also that the integration between various beliefs and teachings is absolutely essential in going forward in the world today. And they integrate so much in their actual foundations that a lot of people don't realize the commonality between whatever particular teaching or faith you want to follow. But it's very, very similar. I mean, in the Christian world, they've just got over Lent, which is very similar to Ramadan. It is about fasting and humility. And that is a commonality between just two of the teachings that there are. So it can be very, very beneficial. And I think with so many children that you've got there, if they're all communicating, their perspective can be changed so more inclusive.
Yeah, I definitely notice it from the difference of generations. So wherever there have been issues of a clash of culture, or when we teach RE, obviously we teach all religions and all backgrounds, and when there have been parents have raised concerns, it's always from the parents. And when we talk to the children, the level of not just tolerance, they don't tolerate other religions, they really accept and celebrate other religions. The children are so ahead of their parents, of course, understandably so, but the worries that the parents raise don't affect the children. The children know, they have a strong sense of their own heritage and culture, but they're equally excited to celebrate others. They love having friends from different backgrounds. They love hearing about like my Christmas day, which will be completely different to theirs. We have a lot of Romanian families that celebrate Christmas differently again. Like, it's definitely, the environment is lovely to be in. I learn stuff every year. I think they learn stuff every year, and they love it, which is good.
And I think we have teachers here who are from the same faith as the children as well. And I think they find a common ground with those teachers. And I think it's great that they have teachers who are of similar faith to them, but they learn from them in terms of, I mean, like for myself, I mean, I'm fasting, and, you know, I kind of, and the children kind of understand. I mean, they actually find it shocking sometimes when staff who are of the same complexion as themselves, who may not be Muslim, but they don't always recognize it, and they say, well, why aren't you fasting? And it's like, well, actually, just because I look like you doesn't mean that I have the same beliefs as you. And I think that's where our children sometimes fall down, because they just sometimes think that everyone in the world who is of the same complexion as them has to obviously follow the same faith. And, you know, and I think that's where the ignorance kind of stems from. And I think it's not just from children who, I guess, are in our community, but I guess if we went to a Leafy Part in Sutton and children were there, they would assume something very similar as well. And it's our job to educate them into knowing that actually even people of the same colour and complexion have different faiths and different beliefs and different backgrounds, and we have to ask the questions in order to understand actually what that is, and not to feel threatened by the answers that you get, because I think that's where the world kind of falls down. Because when you get that answer and it doesn't match with the answer that you have in your head, that suddenly we're no longer friends. Well, that's our job, to teach the children that actually, you know, learning from one another is very, very important. And I think when you're in a hub and when you're in a melting pot, which actually only is very exclusive to yourself, you know, and the people that are within it, we as teachers and practitioners and people who come from the outside have to teach the children that actually there's a big wide world out there. And I had to learn that. And I think, talking from experience, and I always try and bring this to the table for the children, you know, I came from a community where there was lots and lots of mixes. You know, we had Afro-Caribbean, we had you know, South Asian, we had you know, and even within the South Asian community, there were so many different mixes. We had Indian, Bangladeshi, we had Sri Lankan, we had Pakistani, and even within ourselves, you know, I think people struggle to kind of accept each other. So I think it's our duty to make sure that the children know that actually the big wide world isn't just the community that you are seeing in your current kind of little mix and bubble, but it's actually wider, and it's something that you need to understand. So is that your hand up, Tony?
Yes, I'd just like to ask you, I don't know what we haven't covered, whether you have school governors or anything, but it's parental involvement, because it's been my experience working in multi-ethnic areas and socially deprived areas, that often it's not the children that we have to educate, it is the parents.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you can get them on board by being school governors, do you manage to do this, and do you have any?
We do, and I think we're quite lucky in the community that we have, where we have, well, up to more recently, we've had 2 community liaison officers who would kind of almost be the middle people, who we would be able to turn to if there were problems, who would then speak to the local community and be the go-to people. So as well as the teachers, we've got people who sit in the middle, who are kind of the go-betweens. And
well, I found that, like, when I came here, I'm not from this area. I live like about 15 miles away, so I didn't know much about Small Heath, to be honest, and I'd never worked in a school with this level of like mix of ethnicities and everything. And when I got here, I quickly was like put on the lead of PSHE and relationships and sex education. So coming from a white unreligious background, trying to change the lessons and introduce kind of sex education lessons in our school, it was difficult, but I quickly realised that you've got to be super transparent and involve the parents at every single step of the way. And then it's actually been so much easier than the media portrays. And media's portraying this very like Asian against like
well, the
relationship
non-Western and
education.
non-Western kind of ideas that are clashing.
We haven't had that. We've been really, really lucky, and that's partly because the school are really, really close with parents and parent engagement. And we often find that because a lot of our parents don't speak English, you have to try and find a kind of a leader of their community. So there's the Somali families have a couple of women that are really strong attitudes, strong personalities, and they're great at banding people together and getting people's opinions and feeding back to the school. And that's kind of true of all the different families, isn't it? They've always got some kind of spokesperson. So we invite them into school a lot, we get them on side, we try to listen to, look, I definitely know I need help with the intricacies of what's right and what's wrong, what are the little issues that we need to iron out. And then as soon as you get those people on board, they feed back to the people that maybe don't speak English or haven't been in England for a long time. And then it's easy. There haven't been issues. It's been... And
I personally think a lot of the fears that parents have come from the media, and they perpetuate from what is told through the media, and you know, the stories that are told, and we then have to sell them a different version of what we actually do, and kind of try and get them to recognize that actually we are working for the children. This isn't about, you know, an ideology that we have which we're trying to push onto your children. You know, we know fully well that actually as a society, there are things that we need to teach, and there's things that we don't touch. And you know, parents, I think, do trust us, and I think we've built that trust with our parents and our community. And I think that is a strength that we as a school have, which has taken time, but we're proud of that, and you know.
Certainly the ethos that you've given us. I mean, certainly empowering girls within your communities must be quite difficult on occasions, because in specific communities, then the girls are still regarded as second-class citizens, and that their role is really to get married and have children, and not to have a career or to study and be educated. And the fact that you're concentrating on that and empowering people to be able to do that, I think is commendable, because we certainly with the charity we were working through, is that we often found that because the females had a more maternal instinct and a more caring instinct, then their communities actually grew faster and better by empowering the women or the girls to actually do things, because they were more proactive, and because of their natural maternal instincts, they were much more nurturing. And the successes that we got were absolutely amazing because they had this natural ability. And I think historically, where it's been suppressed has not been constructive for communities to build. And certainly if you're liaising with parents and leaders of communities, it makes your job as a teacher a much bigger and more encompassing role as part of the community than possibly many people can actually perceive or understand.
Yeah, and I think what we do is, I think, and we're quite lucky actually that we've got such strong-willed students in terms of the children that we have, who can go back home and actually sell what they learn to their parents, and in such a way that actually their parents they almost take it on. Yeah, they take it on, and it's like, you know, we won't take no for an answer, mum and dad, and yeah, we're only 10 and 11, but you know, this is actually something that we believe in, because we show them that actually they can be passionate about something, you know, which is more than just probably what they're used to seeing at home.
Do you get many children that are new arrivals, or are most of them quite well established in the United Kingdom?
Lots of new arrivals. Obviously not this year because of COVID, we haven't, but in previous years there's been times when every class has been oversubscribed. So we're in a city, Birmingham, and a few years ago when I was quite new here, there was there's a lot of trouble in Afghanistan at that time, and so a lot of families came to small Heath, I guess because there's the community was kind of already settled here. There was a lot of people from Afghanistan already, so they moved to be by families, and some of their stories were the most heartbreaking I've ever heard, and their children would just be picked up, their home would be gone, and family members would be killed, picked up, they'd land in England, and the next day they're at school expected to learn year 5 maths, and they're so adaptable and infinitely resilient. It kind of broke my heart, but then looking back you think, yeah, that was brilliant, that was a brilliant time, kind of, that was a lovely class to have. And so, and every few years, the ethnicity of the people moving over slightly shifts, doesn't it? There's a time when there was a lot of like Pakistani, and then Somalian, Romanian, Afghan.
We seem to have a bit of an Arab kind of mix coming through at the minute. So we've got, I guess, you know, the Syrian refugee community coming through, and then we've got a lot of people coming in from France who, you know, like the North African, so Algerian, we've got Moroccan. So there's communities who have settled in France but are actually seeing England as a more suitable place for them, because of the fact that actually there's that freedom of being able to practice their religion, you know, without being suppressed. And so we've got a really wide range of mixes in terms of ethnicities, languages, as we've spoken about, and cultures, which, you know, we're very proud of. And I think even sometimes the children don't know who's who until, I mean, it surprises them. They're just like, they look at each other and think they're all from the same kind of mix. But I
think they're shocked when I say I was born in Birmingham and I'm still here. What? It's so boring for them. Like, I've got one brother. What? What a sad life I have. But it's good.
It does look to me as if you're actually managing to break down these communities. I don't like the word community, because I don't think there should be. We should all be one community. We said this to the Normans when they came, and they eventually learned and joined in with us all. So I look forward to the day when all those people who come here are part of the British community, and we can accept everybody.
And I think that the key word there is accepting, and I think that needs to come from not just this community, but the communities on the outside. You know, so it has to be a transient way of looking at things.
It starts with the children, though.
100%.
Children together, they're children. They like eating chewing gum or whatever they like.
Crime documentaries.
But their brains are also like sponges, you know, and they absorb so much.
I know, I realise that. But they're all the same.
Yes.
They're all the same. They're school children in the same school.
And they see that. They don't look at each other and think, you know, you're this, and because of that I can't be with you. They just assimilate, they get on, and you know, and that's what we should learn from and think, you know. But then something changes as they get older. So we have to understand what that is as well.
I think they probably get pressurized by their families.
This is it.
Maybe. I don't really know.
Or society, or whatever it is.
Yes, I don't know. I'll ask my friends, because the school I was at, and I'm still in contact with a lot of the children, well, grannies by now, and we grew up with a mixture of, at the time, Jewish children and Christian children, and we were all children of the same school.
Yeah.
The Jewish children went off and said their prayers a different way to us. So what? We were all the same. And I think that was one of the early schools in the UK that had mixed children like that. And I've always thought that that is the best way of getting people of different cultures, faiths, anything you can think of, to live together. But it comes from an early start. So the parents who haven't had that start in their life are a bit lost and they don't understand it. And it must be quite difficult for them. But once they've got used to the idea and see their children are happy with other children coming from a different background to theirs, then they'll start to melt and mix together.
And your school is also unique because you were talking about girls having similar chances, and you're obviously focusing on that with your particular project. And the school, City of London School for Girls, was one of the very, very first that was founded in 1894. So really not that long ago. But an extraordinary man that came up with the idea that it shouldn't just be boys that get an education. So we have moved on a bit, haven't we? And you've clearly moved on in terms of
a long way to go.
The religious complexities, certainly.
Yeah,
I mean, it's certainly true what Anne says, is that, you know, children don't have prejudices or any act. They learn them, and it's the adults that teach them, or circumstances or society that teaches them to have these problems.
Yes.
Which is a shame. It's a great shame.
Oh, we have hope.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that science is being promoted for young ladies as well, because there certainly aren't enough of those. My granddaughter is a scientist, and when she was at university, all her friends were very jealous because there was a wide range of boyfriends.
Oh my God, Anne! I
see there's the added benefits there as well. So
I did science at university because I thought it had the best trips. You got to go on all the cool whale watching. You got to go to America. It had much cooler trips than maths or something.
Such motivation.
Yeah, exactly.
Chip in with a quick question about governance. You're moving into the Star Academies. This clearly must be a big upheaval. And you were saying that some of your teachers, your teaching colleagues, are leaving today, and it was all a bit sad. How are you finding the move? Is it beneficial? And in what ways will it help you?
I think talking, you know, from myself, I think we haven't seen the true kind of benefits of it, or the impact of it even. I mean, it's taken a while. We started the process, I think, in June of last year, and it took about 4 months to fully kind of get the recognition and the kind of paperwork signed. And that was October, where we then went through the process of changing logos, changing the name. And now we've got to the point where I think we are officially setting the grounding for staff.
From Tuesday,
actually.
From 1st of May, that's when the real switch happens.
So we'll officially be a Star school.
So hopefully the benefits, fingers crossed, are that you have a wider pool of expertise. You have a big group of schools that have done similar things. They can afford to have experts in different fields. So that hopefully, we're hoping, is the benefit of it. Maybe not a downside, but the challenge is that academies don't have to follow the national curriculum. So everything that we've built, talking from a science point of view, because that was my job up until today, like all the science lessons, planning, curriculum, coverage, resources, we built on year after year after year. I've been here for 8 years, so we tweaked it. So by last year, I was thinking, yes, this is the best quality provision we've ever had. And now we're not doing those subjects anymore. So we're completely changing, not going off the curriculum for science. So they're introducing different things like meteorology, the periodic table, which isn't done in primary usually, things like that. So we're going to have to re-plan and basically start from the bottom, start with those new things, which could be great, and it'll broaden the horizons of what we teach, but I imagine it's going to be a huge challenge to make sure that is really high quality what we're delivering, because it's so new for everyone. You don't even learn it in teacher training because it's not national curriculum. So that's going to be the difficulty, I imagine.
So essentially, they're imposing their own curriculum on you, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So the academies or the
academy.
local authority?
The academy. So the academy doesn't have to teach the national curriculum.
Right.
So they've chosen their own based on what they felt the other 30 schools in their academy have found over the past, I think, like 20 years or something. They feel like they're the most valuable objectives. So,
Oh, well, that's different, isn't it?
yeah, it might be great. It might not.
I think the beauty is, though, that it is tried and tested in the other schools. So there is obviously a winning formula here, which, you know, they want all the schools to align to, and there's a general feel of whichever star school we go into, we know that the primaries will be teaching this, secondaries will be teaching this, and it allows for a consistent curriculum, which is obviously when the rigor is there in terms of, you know, monitoring, for example, but also I guess the way that things are taught, you know, I guess we can learn from each other in terms of practice and what is good practice. So, and there's a lot of expertise out there, which I think we can tap into.
Our own experiences with talking to schools that are part of trusts or part of groups is that the interaction between their fellow peers is very, very helpful. Whereas historically, each school under local authority tended to be somewhat isolated and doing their own thing. Yeah. Whereas when they've got a community, the word community again, when there's several others that are faced in a different site, but there is a commonality, and you can share how you actually deal with problems. And sometimes you have the same problem as a school that's, you know, half a mile, 2 miles down the road, and their perspective or the way they address it has been a way that you didn't even think of. Yeah. And so therefore, I think there is a growing element there, and that certainly proved to be beneficial with the schools and the trusts that we've spoken to, certainly in the last 6 months, that the fact that they are interacting with each other in a much better way than they ever did before, sharing resources. And it's certainly one of the things that as a company, with what we are trying to do, certainly we would try to be a facilitator in providing you with information that you may not have even sort of looked at before. I mean, I did mention to Lizzie that this publication, which came out, which I will send you a copy of by email, actually gives you the insight of the fact and how diverse the livery movement is, certainly within the square mile of the City of London, and how much money they actually do give to charity, and that there may be other livery companies besides our own where you would qualify to get a grant for one of your colleagues may apply for a grant for a different subject or a different field, because they all specialize in different ways. And of course, something that I'm probably going to steal Lee's thunder here and say, you know, this one project that you are doing now does not have to be the end of your relationship with the glass sellers. You can come up with another idea, or one of your colleagues can come up with another idea, and if it is glass related, science predominantly seems to be what we're doing at the moment, but if it's glass related, we would certainly put it on the drawing board to our trustees and consider giving you some more money for something else.
Could I just chip in with a follow-up to my last question? Did you find the national curriculum itself in any way restrictive? Would you have liked to sort of move away from it?
There's pros and cons. I did think it gave a good broad curriculum, like as a basis, so then in secondary school you can go into more detail. I guess the problem that has happened in science education recently is that science became was not a part of the SATs year 6 testing. When it was part of the year 6 testing with maths and English, schools put a huge emphasis on teaching science. The funding was way higher, the amount of time spent per week teaching science was huge, the amount of monitoring and making sure it was the highest level, there was a huge emphasis on it because it was so important for schools, because their data would be published. Whereas when it was taken off the SATs, so now children in year 6 only do maths and English tests, it's massively dropped in like popularity, I guess, in the teaching world. There's less emphasis on it because schools think they should spend more time doing maths and English if that's the thing that gets published. So my job, I think, as a science lead is to make it have a higher priority, push the importance of it, make it, like, even though it's not going to be reported on, it's still a huge deal.
It's about making those connections with the English and the maths and saying, actually, you know, maths can't be maths without the science part, because science can't work without the maths. So, absolutely. And then also, you know, bringing the links into the English. And
Lizzie made a throwaway remark about up till today, implying that your status is changing.
So my role's changing from today because of the academy, but fortunately it will still involve science. I just won't be a science lead. It's a new role, but I'll definitely keep my fingers on the pulse and make sure this is happening. So I'm definitely going to be involved because I wouldn't want to drop it. It's the favourite part of my job.
And knowing what we know about her, we wouldn't let her relinquish it either. So
it sounds like to me, yeah. But you're entering a period of uncertainty, aren't you? Really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about uncertainty. I think it sounds very positive and a new adventure.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think the changes are quite positive so far. I mean, yes, we've had some change in terms of staffing. But we are looking forward to it. I think we're quite a resilient bunch. We've been through quite a lot with Ofsted and all kinds of other things. So this is just something else that we will, you know, we will go through. And as long as we're together, we'll be fine.
Well, I'd certainly say to you that in terms of resources, that you know, there's this advert, I think, about the 3 essential services and the 4th one being the AA. Certainly regard the glass sellers as being a 5th. That, you know, if you want to find a scientist or you want to find a glass artist or somebody that might interact with you, then certainly ask the question. You can only have one of 2 answers, yes or no. We can help, we may not be able to help, but I can tell you that just the few people that are sitting on this with us today, we all have knowledge and connections that you will probably be absolutely astounded with if you were to ask the question. And as I say, we have one gentleman who apologized. He's the immediate past master. He's just leading one of the most incredible research projects, which is headed up as Glass Futures by name. It is a government-funded organisation. They're setting up a research centre in St Helens with huge amount of money to research the production of glass and to reduce its carbon footprint. But it in turn will also be an educational support for glass and for all the diversity of glass. And you know, glass is such a diverse product, and people just think about, you know, drinking wine or bottles of beer or things like that. But one of the biggest challenges that Glass Futures had was the requirement for one of the biggest glass orders that has ever been made in the history of the world. And that was for small glass files, which are made out of borosilicate glass, which was not manufactured in this country. in the quantity that has been required to administer the vaccines for COVID. They have now just approved to have major production of borosilicate glass in the UK, predominantly to manufacture the files for the glass. So, you know, all these sort of applications of glass, we had a situation, the biggest yacht ever built was built out of fiberglass. And that was a few years ago, which we had the privilege of being involved with because one of our members was the man that commissioned it building. And if you look at our website, there's a film of it. On our charity video that was done, and it's on our YouTube channel, there is a photograph of this yacht sailing, and it is absolutely magnificent. I think we could probably go on all afternoon. We've well past our usual timing with such stimulating conversation.
I know, really interesting. Thank you.
Fascinated with, and I would therefore ask our master to summon up and close the day, and obviously close the weekend. So over to you, Bill.
Close the weekend.
Good, thank you, Paul. Shabir and Lizzie, thank you from the bottom of my heart. When I looked up your 2019 Ofsted report, it made me a bit nervous, and I wondered what I was going to meet.
No, we are just to give you a bit of context on that report. The one before it, which was 2018, was it the year before? No, our school, we've always seen it as an outstanding school, and what let us down was certain things. We acquired the secondary school, and the leadership of that school wasn't what it should have been because of the support that we didn't get, and I think that's where it comes from. So I'm not going to kind of go into it.
You've got to go on and say, well, quite clearly, you are an outstanding school now.
Yes, we see ourselves in that sense.
Such a lucid and fluent and interesting account of the school, its situation in society, the breadth of diversity of the pupils and their backgrounds. It was absolutely fascinating and so brilliantly conveyed. It really lit me up. And then, Lizzie, your enthusiasm for conveying science information to the children and stimulating their interest was just sort of tangible, and a brilliant professional presentation you gave to us. I particularly loved the expression on the face of the first girl you interviewed when you asked her what scientists looked like, and the expression on her face when she ended up saying, "And most of them are men," brought a smile to my face, a twinkle.
I think I've encouraged a bit of a feminist movement in my class.
Oh, yes, that was quite evident.
Well done.
The new suffragette movement is about to start.
It was brilliant, and it's been a real privilege sitting here talking with you and listening to what you've got to say and show us. Your demands of us are extremely modest, I note, and I have no doubt that despite all the changes that you are now going through, you will put them to the very best of use and will tell us about it. We very much look forward to hearing about how it develops and how you put them to good use in a future session. And as has been hinted at, if you want more, don't hesitate to ask. I'm not in a position to promise you'll get it, but I'm sure if you make a good case, there's every chance the trustees, the chairman is looking away now, he might consider it favourably. But
Masters are always good at spending money, Master.
I wish you the very best of luck with all the changes that you've got facing you, and to congratulate you on dealing so effectively with a huge variety of pupils from different backgrounds and blending them together and stimulating their interests. It's really wonderful. So all I can do is wish you the best of luck and look forward to meeting you again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just add two things that you would note is the two ladies that are with us today, Anne Reed and Barbara Biedman, are both very successful ladies in their own fields. Anne was in the world of architecture, which is very much a man's world, and Barbara was in glass manufacture, which again is a very male-dominated industry, and they were both excellent and pioneering, successful ladies in their field.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it's very true. I mean, you know, I can't. It praise is due where praise is due, and the both of them are much and highly regarded in the fields in which they worked, and are great mentors. And Barbara, as I said, Barbara just lives up the road to you. She's in Stourbridge or Old Winsford. So, you know, she knows what the area's like. She knows the challenges that you've got. So, as I say, you don't have to just ask us for money. You could ask us for advice or...
I'm sure if you ask them nicely, they'll both come and talk to your pupils. And
Well, I would love to do that. I'd love to come and work with them.
That'd be really good.
So, you know, there's the invitation there. Oh, well, on that note, have a lovely bank holiday weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your input. It's been
Thanks for inviting us and giving us the opportunity.
No problem.
We'll look forward to engaging with you again very soon.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.